What episode are we? 29. Almost 30. Mm-hmm. Well, almost. Welcome to almost episode 30 of the SmartB Sports Podcast. How's things, Dan?
Good, thanks, John. Yourself, mate?
Fantastic.
I'm just going to give now that the Cricket World Cup's over, I thought we'd have a bit of provocative NRL discussion, John. So I'm just going to put a tease out there for our listeners and our viewers. Going to be talking about the most overrated players in the NRL, so stay tuned for that one.
Yes, I'm very excited for it. Before we kick off, though, our bookmaker for the month of November is Elite Bet, and as I always say, I feel like I'm Joe Rogan, and we should pre-record this for the AG1 sponsorships. Or is it ExpressVPN? All bookmakers claim to offer service of some description, but at Elite Bet, they generally pride themselves on offering exceptional personal service that's not found in the bookmaking industry. They're an Australian-owned business where old-fashioned customer service really matters. EliteBet.com.au. Bet with your head, not over it. And we can kick off with cricket as normal. The World Cup isn't over because the fallout continues, but there's some, other matches first.
Yeah, John, this meaningless 5-game 2020 series between Australia and India, it's about to get underway. David Warner's the latest player to pull out, John. That's after Pat Cummins, Josh Hazlewood, Mitchell Starc are already not playing in this. Virat, Kohli and Rohit Sharma not playing for India either. I think only one player from India's team that played in the World Cup final is actually going to be a part of this series, John. So that just gives you an idea of how
stupid.
Yeah, or just the two teams are not taking it seriously. I think a big part of the problem, John, is that Australia and India played in that World Cup final. I think that's made this it's made this look worse. The fact that those two countries were in the World Cup final. And now they've got to play in this 5-game 2020 series. If it had been two other countries in the World Cup final, I think maybe people wouldn't be so upset, wouldn't be as upset with the scheduling of this. But obviously that's no excuse for the organisers, John. I mean, yeah. Australia and India were a good chance of being in the final before the tournament kicked off. So... But I think that has added to the anger of the fans. And look, fair enough, John. It's ridiculous timing.
Yeah, like Yash said, it's the B team. Like, that's what it is. It's the B team. Beginning of this week, before there was all of the pullouts, they were both paying $1.90, if you remember, with Elite Bet. Australia is now firmed as favourites for the match tomorrow at $1.75, while India is $2.06. The Google win probability at the beginning of the week was 53% in India's favour. It's now 54% in Australia's favour, simply because Australia still does have some of those players in their squad that haven't yet pulled out. But who knows what's going to happen tomorrow morning? Because they've still got Steve Smith.
I've got the squad here.
Glenn Maxwell.
I've got the squad. I
know Glenn Maxwell loves to play 2020, so I hope that he'll pull out.
I can go through the Aussie squad if you like, John. Yeah, so Matthew Wade's the skipper, Jason Berendorf, Sean Abbott, Tim David, Nathan Ellis, Travis Head, the legendary Travis Head, Josh Inglis, Kane Richardson, Aaron Hardy, Glenn Maxwell, the Big Show, Tanvir Sanger, Matt Short, Steve Smith, as you mentioned, John, Marcus Stoinis and Adam Zampa. And yeah, John, just touching on what I said before, Suryakumar Yadav, he's the skipper for the Indian team. He's the only player who played in the Indian squad who played in the World Cup final, in that squad that's been named for the first 3 games. So we don't know what will happen for games 4 and 5, but for the first 3 games, he's the only player in the Indian T20 squad who featured in that World Cup final.
Could be that if Australia goes 2 up, then India will bring in the big guns.
But nobody cares anyway. I mean, India could win this series 5-0, John. I couldn't care less.
Yeah,
seriously.
Yeah, it's the other thing that I only discovered yesterday, thanks to browsing odds, is that New Zealand and Bangladesh are also playing a series. They've got a test series starting next week on the 28th. It's a 2-test series. In Bangladesh. That's again, it's basically the same thing. Like, how do you go from ODI? They need a month off at least.
Yeah, they just it's interesting you mention it, John. It's like, cricket, all they do with cricket is just chase the cash, right? If the NRL or AFL seasons went for an extra 2 months than what they do, they'd make more money out of it because they'd be able to. They'd get more for the TV deal because they'd have more games for the broadcasters. But you got to know where to draw the line, John. It's not all about money. In tennis, if they added a 5th Grand Slam, it would make more money for the tennis body. But they know where to draw the line. Same with golf. If golf added a 5th major, it'd make more money, but they know where to draw the line. That's the difference with cricket. They don't know where to draw the line. They just they'll do anything for quick cash and put on any series at any time for quick cash.
It's so weird to me. Like the television networks are paying broadcast deals for these things. Don't they look at the rate? Well, traditional television ratings is actually quite. They're nonsense, to be honest. So
you think there's clearly inaccuracies?
Oh yeah, because if you know how the Nielsen ratings work, it's like you apply or you volunteer to have a box in your house that monitors what channels you're listening to, and there's only like 500 Nielsen boxes in Australia, for example.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And you just got to think about there's a certain type of person that would bother having the box in their house.
Exactly. Yeah.
The ratings are actually based on one specific personality. With the rise of digital networks and online stuff like that, the apps, and like I said, I've said before, I don't have an antenna in my house. I only watch internet television stations. I have the 7 Now app or whatever, 7 Good. Well, I don't know what they're called.
Is it 7 Plus maybe?
Yeah, 7 Plus, 10 Play, 9 Now. Yeah. I have all of those apps on my Android TV, and I guarantee you they can actually specifically monitor. Either that, or either they can or they can't actually, because one of the conspiracy theories about Netflix never releasing numbers is actually that Netflix doesn't know the numbers, and they're really.
Oh well, at least they're honest, right?
No, well they don't know.
Yeah.
They just say.
Well, at least they're not fudging them and making them up.
Yeah. They never. Yeah, well, that's it. They never release them, and there's a conspiracy theory that Netflix just actually monitors internet chatter about popularity of TV shows over. Actual knowing the numbers.
Right. So is there a better way that the TV stations could measure these ratings, John?
Internet-based. It depends on if they're willing to invest in the technology. Because, for example, it's not the same. People think it's the same. I have these conversations with people all the time. They think Netflix is the same as YouTube. But Netflix and YouTube are not the same, even in the same ballpark time kind of... technology. They're both just they're not even both video streaming platforms, to be honest. But with YouTube, exactly how many people have watched your videos, and we know SmartB knows when we publish things, on average how long people are going through the videos, how much time they're watching, what percentage of the videos they're watching, and things like that. And you would have to say that I can't tell specifically that Dan watched this video 1 hour long or whatever, but you'd have to say that Google knows. Whereas with things like Netflix and TV station and stuff, if they don't have the technology to be able to do it, because that's also a separate investment. You spend a lot of money making your video streaming platform work, and you have to continue to invest in technology, actually. Like when you have I tell people who ask me about designing apps, I say you're in perpetual beta mode. An app never exits beta mode, actually. You're always developing.
Yeah.
Even small things like on a phone app, when Apple took away the button, they don't have a button anymore on the iPhones. That was a massive issue in all apps because a whole bunch of apps had an up swipe for a control mechanism. Yeah. And now that closes your app. So, what I'm saying is, they have the opportunity now to know more accurately than using Nielsen ratings or the boxes they use, or even the radio one is even worse, to be honest. But it's just because they have the potential doesn't mean they actually invest in that section of the technology, because they have to spend so much money on keeping their technology alive. KO, it's well documented how poor the KO experience is and how often it crashes and how often, like if too many people are logging on at the same time, it can't handle the database connections. There's a whole thing about KO with if everyone is watching one individual stream, that stream will die for heaps of people. But you can go and watch a different sporting event with no issue. So KO is really individualized to their stream, so they would have developers working on that all the time. So what that means is they don't have the money or resources to work on functions to capture how many people are watching, what percentage they're watching it for, and stuff like that. Until they do, the television, because when television networks do know this, and they're able to go to Australia and India, and Australia and India say, after the World Cup, we're planning on having this T20 thing. Eventually, the television stations will be able to say, well, the World Cup had 3 million people watching the final. And then last year in 2023, when you run a T20, it went down to 40,000. So we're not going to pay you hardly any money to watch this, to broadcast this. And then and only then will cricket learn, like, maybe we shouldn't have so much shit on. Because it's all going to come down to the broadcast rights. Like, they do it because they're going to get money from broadcast advertisers, stuff like that. When you have access to how much people are, like, accurate information for how many people are watching it, then and only then will you know how much you should pay for it. Because, like, radio is a funny one. Like, I don't know anymore if it's the same anymore, because digital radio's come along, like, been around for longer and come a long way. But it used to be, again, a bunch of volunteers who would basically carry a piece of paper around all day and write what radio station they were listening to at what time. Even if they went into a mall and, like, Carl and Jackie O were playing, they'd write Carl and Jackie O at Westfield Parramatta 11:31 to 11:37 and then hand that in, and they take the ratings of radio shows off that. But again, you have to be a certain type of person to want to do that, and so really you're only getting the ratings of certain type of people. So it's slightly off topic, but still it speaks to it. Like, we won't see major changes in these scheduling things until television stations and stuff have more information on how many people are legitimately watching it, as well as the sports organisations have legitimate accuracy for how much watching it.
That's a good point you make, John. Yeah, I can't even begin to imagine what the global TV ratings for the World Cup final would have been, given the population of India, that 1 billion plus people.
See if we can look it up.
Yeah, you may or may not be able to find that that information, John. I'm not sure if that would be available, but obviously, as you mentioned, whatever that number is for the final, the TV ratings, the number of people who watch this 2020 series coming up, it's just going to absolutely pale in comparison, John.
Yeah, exactly. Yes,
it would be nice if that information was more reliable, so they could look at it and go, well, this is worth nothing to us, coming off the back of such a successful World Cup where so many people were watching, John.
Yeah, and so I don't know what 5.9 crore is. What's a crore?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
10 million. What's 5.9 times 10 million?
Was that 59 million?
Yeah, 59 million. So in India, it's 59 million people watching. Even that's not very many, right?
I mean, I think we do have to be mindful, John, of the situation of a lot of people in India.
Yeah.
A lot of them do, unfortunately, live in... It's a huge population, but a lot of them do live in poverty. A lot of them just would not have access to a television.
You can say, I don't know, 50.9 million is not a lot or is a lot, but I have no comparative. Again, we'll go back to the data set. I don't know.
And that's the thing. I mean, you'd imagine if the rating systems in Australia are inaccurate and flawed, well, they're not going to be very accurate.
We can use Australia as a thing. So 40.2% of network share. Again, I use that term loosely based on how they calculate ratings. So 40.2% of people watched that Indian World Cup final. They're going to know based on the same rating how many people watch this T20 series.
Yeah.
But the what are they called? The sports organisations can spin it how they want to the networks to sell it and say this is what our value is. But until the television networks have super accurate data, they'll never be able to push back and say, well, no, like it's not.
Yeah.
And because I do a lot of digital advertising, which of course is super accurate. So when I compare like Facebook stats to Reddit advertising stats to Snapchat advertising stats to TikTok even, I can clearly see how many people saw my ad, how many people stayed on my ad in the video, say in the case of a video, for more than 7 seconds. The video ads are normally between 15 and 30 seconds. Over 7 seconds is generally going to lead to a conversion. How many people actually clicked on it, and how many people not like clicked on it but also went to the landing page I've set, if I'm sending them to the SmartB website, I can see how many people do that, and it's incredibly accurate. And then when I compare it across, I can go like, okay, TikTok I'm getting 2 cents per click, just say, and Facebook I'm getting 50 cents per click. Then I can go to Google Analytics and I can see from those sources how long those people are spending on a website, for example. So I can go, yes, TikTok is 2 cents per click, so I'm getting a higher volume of traffic. But the people who come from TikTok, on average, only spend 20 seconds on the site. And yes, Facebook is a little bit more expensive at 50 cents, but there's people who come from Facebook are spending 5 minutes on the website. So which one is really worth more? Yeah. And unfortunately, at this point in time, TV networks and radio networks don't have this kind of level of data. You'll just continue to see it. Even things like the Pacific Championship is the same boat, right? Like, they ran this ridiculous Pacific Championship, Pacific Bowl. It was on Channel 9. And they'll use these weird rating things and go, we got 20% of network share. Yeah, but what does that even mean? Like, how many people actually watched it? I remember, it's like on a side, like the Baywatch used to hold the world record based on, I've read David Hasselhoff's autobiography. He's one of my personal heroes, David Hasselhoff, the Hoff. I listen to David Hasselhoff sings Christmas every year. So that used to hold the record for something for like 3 billion people tuned into Baywatch worldwide.
Wow.
And, how do they know based on things like the way Australian networks ratings work and American ones and English ones and Indian ones, like the ratings levels? And I always thought that was like of course he's bragging about it. It was the most popular show in the world. In the year the World Cup was on, that Baywatch was on or whatever, Baywatch outrated it or something.
Yeah, right.
But again, like, how do you know? How do you really know how accurate it is? It's just basically old people who are willing to do the Nielsen ratings in reality prefer to watch Baywatch over the World Cup.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who prefer to watch Baywatch than watch this 2020 series that's coming up.
Baywatch is awesome, man. Yeah. Back when he was, Mitch Buchanan was a Navy SEAL, and they had lines like that. I haven't seen a detonator like this since I was a Navy SEAL, and an amount of C4 since I was in the LA SWAT team. The guy's like Barbie. He's been everything. That T20 series is pointless. It's I said. Bet with your head not over it. But Australia's paying $1.75 to win the first match. I've talked before about how you can tell how popular bookmakers think the match is going to be by the amount of markets, and there's only like a few markets available for it as well. So.
Tells a story, John.
Yeah, exactly.
Tells a story.
I like the funny one is like one of the markets is to score 10. You can bet on if a player is going to score 10 runs. Because it's 2020. And then to score 25 is like a much rarer. I don't think Steve Smith's paying $2 to score 25. And you just think at any time, surely Steve Smith can score 25, but it is a 2020.
Yeah. Scoring, they're scoring at a much higher rate, so with that risk means there's a higher risk they're going to get out early, John.
Yeah. But there is lots of news, lots of fallout from the World Cup still.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sore winners, sore losers.
Yeah, so obviously on Tuesday, John, we were just sort of reviewing the final, but with an event that big, you always have little stories that sort of drip feed their way out in the days following. It's come to light that Marcus Stoinis actually didn't shake hands with Sachin Tendulkar on stage after the World Cup final. He also didn't shake hands with some of the officials. Adam Zampa did shake Tendulkar's hand, but he didn't shake hands with some of the officials either. I don't really care about the officials, John, but you got to shake hands with... If Sachin Tendulkar's on stage, if you're Marcus Stoinis, I think you got to show him the respect and shake his hand.
A little bit weird, like, all of this handshaking stuff is a little bit weird because it's just a process that you have to go through as a sports star who has won or even lost.
Yes.
That you walk up on stage and shake the hands of all the people that are there, even if you don't know who they are. Man, if Salt Bay, that chef guy, is there, you shake his hand because he's on the stage. Yeah. And the fact that these guys basically picked and chose who they're going to shake hands with it's a bizarre thing to me. Like,
true.
You have to.
You should shake hands with everybody, John.
There's a bunch of guys in a line.
All right, they didn't shake hands with some of the officials. All right, they should have, John, but I can live with it. But to not shake hands with Sachin Tendulkar, an icon of the game, I think that's poor form for Marcus Stoinis.
It's just bizarre, though. Like, if you think about it, if Stoinis shook hands with the other officials, excuse me, that means he chose. Like, what's going through his head was like, I'm not going to shake hands with that guy, but I'm going to shake hands with all these.
There is an arrogance to it, isn't there, John?
Yeah.
To go, look, I'm not shaking your hand. I might shake someone else's hand. But yeah, at least Zampa shook Tendulkar's hand. Stoinis didn't even shake Tendulkar's hand.
But Zampa's shaking Tendulkar's hand and then not shaking specifically.
Yeah, you're right.
What's going through their head?
And that's the thing, John. Like we talked about India's behaviour afterwards, like not staying for the presentation. That was poor form. But I mean, they had, and obviously you got to be a good loser as well, John. Yeah. But I mean, they'd lost the game and they were clearly seething.
Yeah, it's hard.
And they were just angry. And then you can sort of half get that, you know. But to be a bad winner, I mean, you won. It's easy to be a good winner, John, surely. You won the biggest prize in world cricket. Surely you can do the decent thing and shake the hands of the officials and an icon of the game like Sachin Tendulkar on stage afterwards.
I say a lot, like, I don't know why this is a story, but like the reason this is a story is because it's bizarre behaviour.
Yeah, that's right.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, for Stoinis to walk up, like I said, and go, I'm not going to shake his hand, but I'll shake all these dudes' hands. And then for Zampa to walk up, I'm going to shake this hand, but not these other dudes, like just these random ones in the thing. It's just bizarre. Like,
you should show humility in victory.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just a line. It's not like...
there were a lot of things about India that were, very disappointing in the World Cup.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The way they reacted to to losing that game, the doctoring of the pitches. There's any number of things we could go into.
Flipping the coin 7 metres away.
there's any number of things we could say that were wrong with regard to India's, their display of behaviour at this World Cup. But that doesn't mean that Australia should stoop to that level, John. You got to be better than that, especially after you win. You got to be gracious. You got to be humble in victory. You got to rise above that sort of stuff. And show some class.
So, like, in games like sports, not games, but sports like tennis, rugby league, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they go around and they shake everyone's hand afterwards, right? And it's a little bit different in that situation where, say in tennis, there's linesmen in multiple different locations and there's the umpire. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, when it's a black belt championship match, they'll have one ref in the middle, one ref in corners and a table ref, and like there's not a line there to walk up to and shake the hands one by one. You have to run around and in tennis the officials don't all line up for you to shake their hands. You got to run around. Maybe you'll forget one, but there's very rarely going to be this thing where you consciously go, I'm not going to shake that dude's hand. In the presentations, it's a completely different ballgame because it's just a line, like an actual line of, here is a set bunch of people we have set that you're going to shake their hands as you get presented with your medals or you're walking up on stage. So just go along the line. To consciously go, I'm not going to shake Sachin Tendulkar's hand, it's just bizarre. It's just, do they have history? Tendulkar didn't play,
Yeah, it's very strange, Sean. We're talking about this behaviour of the Australians in the aftermath, John. I've got another example of some behaviour that I didn't like. So Michael Clark, after Australia had lost their first 2 games of the World Cup, he made some comments on his radio program saying that, he thought something along the lines of, if we're not careful, we're going to be having the same conversation about the Australian cricket team that we're having about the Wallabies, that.
Yeah.
And look, to be honest, John, at that time we were saying a similar thing. We were concerned that Australia looked terrible in the first 2 games.
The whole world thought it.
They didn't just lose. They got annihilated. They got smashed in the first 2 games of the tournament. And at that time, they were on the bottom of the table, the 10-team table. At that time, we were saying a similar thing. And so anyway, Adam Zampa, after the final, has quoted Clark in part on Instagram. And he's followed up Clark's quotes with a series of laughing emojis and then an orange love heart on Instagram. I don't like that, John. Adam Zampa doesn't need to do that. To be honest, John, I've never been a big fan of Michael Clark. Never. But that's, I think that's poor form from Adam Zampa carrying on like that. He didn't need to do that, John. His performances on the field did the talking in that tournament. I think that's really poor form for him to sort of make fun of a grade of Australian cricket in that manner on Instagram.
I think it shows immaturity and, again, poor winning attitude. To go back to something that was from 6 weeks ago, 9 matches ago.
Yeah.
And dredge it back up.
Yeah. Very poor form.
If Adam Zampa hadn't have been playing, right, he had have been sitting at home. He's obviously not a commentator, doesn't have a radio program or anything like that. If he had have been sitting at home watching the Cricket World Cup, after those first 2 games, he would have been chatting with his mates and going, "Oh, mate, we're terrible, we're awful, it's..." From the outside looking in, and surely from the inside looking in, everyone knew that Australia was poor in the first 2 games.
Mm.
And people who have platforms, they have one job, to comment on those things. Michael Clark is an ex-Australian cricket captain. He was a captain, right? Yeah. The thing I remember most about Michael Clark is he said to someone that he's going to come break your arm. It was such a weird thing to say. Bro, you're cricketers.
That was when Mitchell Johnson was bowling absolute thunderbolts at the English team in the 2013-14 Ashes series, John. He said that to one of the English players. He said he's going to break your arm.
It's such a
and I
weird
think he
thing to
added
say.
a few other words, John, that I won't say on our...
It was such a weird thing to say, man. You're cricketers. You're not like MMA fighters. But anyway...
But hey, everyone watched it. Everyone, you couldn't look away.
And I still remember it.
Yeah, exactly. You couldn't look away. That's right.
He has a job now. That's his job now. He's finished with his cricket. He's not part of the coaching. He's not part of anything. He's got
He's entitled to his opinion.
Yeah, and his job is to actually say his opinion.
Yeah, and he gave a strong opinion, and that's what people want to hear. People don't want to hear...
And you're going to go whine about it. Now, all that does is, when people do that, go back and bring up stuff like that, you just leave yourself open to the same thing.
So what happens when, if we... And all right, he had a great World Cup. No, we're not taking that away from him. But what happens if 12 months down the track, Adam Zampa goes through a form slump, but that's the thing. Then people turn around and go, "Oh, you're not laughing now." I mean, John, that posting those laughing emojis on Instagram, that's school kid stuff. Yeah. That's primary school kid stuff.
Guarantee you that what will happen is someone will go screenshot exactly what he did and then respond with it. It's so.
You don't bring that up. That's poor form. You let your actions do the talking. Your bowling do the talking. You don't attack a legend of Australian cricket. As I say, John, there have been times in the past where I haven't agreed with Michael Clark, and I've had just a very different line of thinking to him on certain things. But on this one, John, I'm with Michael Clark. A lot of people were saying that at that time.
Yeah.
And to bring this up afterwards, very poor form from Adam Zampa.
Yeah, silly. And so
a few other things.
Yeah, so President Modi, actually, it was really funny because after our podcast on Monday, the managing director of SmartB asked me, "Did you talk about what President Modi did?" Then I had to go look up what he was talking about. I was like, better chuck that in so I can say, this one's for you, Amjad. President Modi, who was at the cricket, obviously, and he was one of those guys that had to shake hands. It's such funny footage, and somebody needs to add the Benny Hill music behind it and post that on as a meme.
Yeah.
And it will forever be a meme. I guarantee it will become a meme. He walked off the stage without shaking Pat Cummins' hand. Mm-hmm. And Pat Cummins was just left
Yeah, they left him there. They left him there.
In one of those, like, what do I do here kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, he did go and shake the rest of the team's hands, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did.
That's why it's a meme.
Yeah. But John, you're laughing about it, and it's funny, isn't it?
It's the same thing. Like, it's the same thing as Stoinis not shaking his Daicos.
Yeah,
but it's funny because this one is meme-worthy. Like, it looks like a meme.
Yeah, and then leaving Cummins there on stage for a moment on his own. But John, can I just say, like, I get it, it's funny, and it makes for good content. But on Twitter, they made out like it was the biggest deal in the world that Modi had... And I watched the coverage back, John. He wasn't there for that long, okay? He was there for a short amount of time on his own, maybe 20, 30 seconds, maybe at most, and then his teammates joined him. But on Twitter, I've noticed, John, they think everything is the end of the world on Twitter, don't they? They blew up about it. They took it so seriously, John. How could Modi leave Pat Cummins up there? All right, he was there for all of 20 or 30 seconds, and then his teammates joined him. Okay?
I like the comedy.
It wasn't. Yeah, it's funny. It was funny. It was funny. It was a light-hearted moment, John. We're laughing about it, but it wasn't. It wasn't something to be taken seriously. And you know what Twitter's like.
Yeah,
John,
absolutely. Twitter is a cesspool. I I have the opinion that it's better now that Elon's taken over. I know a lot of left-wing people who will disagree with me. But Twitter is actually my comedy social media.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny to go on. Every single time I open Twitter, I have myself a good laugh. Not because people are telling funny jokes. But because it's giving me the ability to laugh at the world.
Yeah, that's the thing, John. The Modi incident here, it's funny, right? It's a joke. It's a
funnier.
Laugh. It's a laugh.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's not something to get outraged about.
It's even funnier because of the outrage.
It's just...
I go to Instagram to keep up on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA announcements. I go to Facebook to find out what my family is doing and find out whose birthday it is. I never ever know anybody's birthday. I barely know my own kid's birthday. My 7-year-old daughter is the keeper of the chronicles when it comes to birthdays. I just ask her, how old is this person? What is their birthday? And she tells me. But Twitter is like, I need a laugh. Whatever you open it on, doesn't matter what it is, just take it as comedy, because everything that happens on Twitter is ridiculously funny. They have all this outrage. That's why it's funny, because it looks so funny, Pat Cummins standing there, and like I said, it's got to become meme templates. I expect in the next year or so you'll start seeing on Reddit crickets and stuff like that, people will have like these funny templates for Pat Cummins standing there looking like a doofus. And then you go on Twitter and you find people going, Modi is the worst person in the entire universe for leaving him hanging.
That's what they were saying,
it's
John.
It's even funnier now.
It's a light-hearted moment that Twitter has to take seriously, John.
Twitter is a joke. Like, that's what it is. The whole thing is like a joke.
Is society worse for having social media?
100%. Yeah. I think I've discussed it before. I think his name Tristan Harris. He's the Ethical Internet Society guy or whatever. He traced back. There's so much outrage and bipartisan arguments and stuff like that in the world now, and you can trace it all back to the time when YouTube added the "you might also like" button and converted the internet from being a place where people go to get information. They converted it to a bunch of capitalist websites whose sole goal is to keep people on that one website for as long as possible. And that "you might also like" button inspired the algorithms of Facebook. Instagram is owned by Facebook, uses the same algorithm. Twitter, all of those, to just present you with things that will keep you there. And the anonymity of it, in which you can just say or do basically whatever you want, and it's really hard for people to track you down or do anything, is what makes it just the destruction of society. I always say, and I'm happy to say it in public, because in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu we have it's a combat. I use the term loosely, combat sport. It's people rolling around on the floor. A lot of people will talk a lot of like a big game about how tough they are and how they can bash anyone. But then as soon as you're in front of them, they say completely different things. And that's what social media and the internet gives people, and the way it has made basically the destruction of society. because people can say whatever they want with no chance of getting slapped in the face.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they'll go on about how Modi is the worst human in the world for leaving Pat Cummins standing on stage, because no one will be able to just walk up to them and say, "What'd you say?" Modi will never be able to walk up to them and go, "What'd you call me?" Because if he did, they'd immediately go, "I'm so sorry."
Facebook's just ridiculous as well, John. It's just people bragging about everything. Look at me, look at me. It's just garbage.
Like Facebook is considered the old person social media now. It's just what like my mum is on, but like I said, I use it to find out what my family is up to.
Yeah.
And it tells me people's birthdays. Anyway.
So John, one other thing I put down in our cricket rundown before we move on to the other sports today. It sort of come to light, this Justin Langer issue again, how he stepped down as Australian coach last year. I think Cricket Australia offered him only a 6-month extension and he just wasn't happy with it, John, so he bailed completely. But you'd have to say, John, that decision to replace him, it's now been vindicated with Andrew McDonald taking over. The team seem happier since McDonald's taken over, John, and I went through this the other day. Australia's won the ICC Test Championship. They won the ICC World Cup, retained the Ashes in England, won a Test series in Pakistan, and haven't lost a Test at home, John, since Andrew McDonald took over. So you'd have to think that decision to replace Justin Langer was the right one, John. Well, we've got to give credit where it's due to Cricket Australia.
Fortunately, Wikipedia is having an issue right now, and that's where I get all my percentage stats for his win percentage. But what I kind of find now with the Australian cricket team since he's taken over is even when they lose series, it's not bad. Like we don't generally think it's the end of the world. We have a leftover now, I think, feeling from past history where Australian cricket was kind of on a slide. And it wasn't Justin Langer's fault or anything like that, but Australian cricket was on a slide where Australia would lose a series and you'd go, well, that's the end of the year, basically. It was all doom and gloom. Now when they lose a series, we go, oh, they lost. Okay, let's move on to the next series now. Okay, like as fans and commentators. I know we were like talking about like what is going to happen with the lead up in the series leading up and the warm up game and stuff like that. That'll give you a good indication. But the simple fact is, now when something changes in the Australian cricket team since Andrew McDonald's taken over, we kind of forget everything that happened. Whereas in the olden days, when something changed in the Australian cricket team, like just 1 year ago, you would go, yeah, it's the end of the world again. We're going to have a Dave Warner, Steve Smith cheating scandal or something like that. So, yeah, it's definitely the right decision. They've just won a World Cup.
Well done to Andrew McDonald. He's got the team. They're happy. They're playing for him, and he's getting results. So, I just thought it was worth sort of revisiting that a bit, John, because Justin Langer at that time, he was angry about it. He took a shot at people in and around the decision to have him, not to have him removed. They did offer him an extension, but it was a 6-month extension, so he sort of took that badly, obviously, and he sort of had a shot at people who had a hand in that. And he wasn't happy, and there were other ex-players who weren't happy about it, but you have to say to them, look, Cricket Australia were right. Yeah. And you got to acknowledge that, and well done to Andrew McDonald and Australia.
And he's so young, only 42, he should still be playing. That's pretty much cricket for the until next week when we talk about who won on Friday.
Oh yeah, the big 2020 series, John.
Bill from the Waddanjinji Warriors or something is playing. He scored a century in the 2020, like whatever. But rugby league, we got some rugby league stuff. And our best friend Latrell back in the news. He's been missing for a couple of weeks. We've only had some snide digs at him.
I'll be honest, John. I was so with my research for the podcast. I was so engrossed in the World Cup, as you can imagine, that I just didn't get to this. This came out about a week ago, Latrell Mitchell talking on a podcast, but now that the World Cup's over, I think we can revisit it. Yeah. A lot of people wouldn't have been aware of this. So, he was talking about it was widely reported that Sam Burgess left his role at South this season as an assistant coach because he'd called out some, so-called preferential treatment being shown to Latrell Mitchell and Cody Walker from the coach Jason Demetriou. So talking on a podcast, Mitchell said, and I quote, "It rattled me, I tell you what. You try and say it didn't affect you as a person, but it started to drip into your personal life and footy. If you're not happy on the field, you're never going to perform on it." John, do you think... I'm starting to think that he takes whatever opportunity he can to play the victim, you know. I mean, it's... You know, Sam Burgess walked out because of him, John, and now he's saying that it rattled him. I mean, I think it rattled Sam Burgess as well. It rattled Sam Burgess to the point where he walked out of the club. But Latrell, to me, John, and I think we cover him fairly. We criticise where we think it's due and we give him praise where we think it's due. But in this instance, John, you know, he's saying that it rattled him. Clearly, it rattled Sam Burgess. He quit the club over it. You know,
it's always about Latrell.
Yeah.
So can we just... Because we have had a comment on... I told producer John we need to change the ad that we have up for Facebook because we've had another comment on that Latrell video. One comment, social media comment. And so I'm just going to jump forward and read it now, like, because it reads into this. So Valerie Latham Phillips said, "Surely you can't believe that this is in front of people's mind. 90+% of people couldn't care less." The thing is, the reason why this video is so successful, it's, you know, every basically once a week we get comments on it and discussions, is because Latrell Mitchell is always in the news. Now, this video is from... I can't even remember. It was like episode 7 or something.
First podcast.
Yeah, like episode 7 or something. That's almost 30 podcasts. But it's like 4 months ago. It's from July or something. And he's still front and center. And the reason more people could care less is because he always has a way to bring himself back into it. So it's quite funny that a week ago, he's talking about how it rattled him and it basically made the Sam Burgess leaving about Latrell, which it was about Latrell, but Sam Burgess leaving is also more about Sam Burgess than Latrell. Latrell is the catalyst. It's a thing that Sam Burgess did.
Yeah, Sam Burgess was upset. We haven't heard him talk about it publicly. He's kept silent. And so he's upset because of preferential treatment being shown to Latrell and Cody Walker. And now Latrell's saying that it rattled him. It rattled Sam Burgess, Latrell.
Well, I would say it rattled everyone that was also you know, you'd have to think, when an assistant coach or even a coach leaves a team suddenly.
He could have said, look, he could have said something like, John, Sam Burgess is a legend of our club. I'm really sorry if he felt that way. Yeah. But no, none of that, John. We didn't get any lines like that.
You would have to think that Sam Burgess raised these issues not on behalf of himself, okay? Sam Burgess was an assistant coach, an employee of the club, who, when players have preferential treatment or are treated differently, it has no effect on a coach, actually. It has an effect on other players and their morale and their belief, their feelings. So Sam Burgess would have been raising this issue on behalf of certain players, okay? And Sam Burgess basically throwing in the towel and saying, "Oh, I'm not getting anywhere," and quitting. You know, you can say it in a negative context if you want. He gave up. He gave up because, that guy, you can't say he ever gives up. No. You know, that guy, he played...
He won a Clive Churchill medal in a grand final after breaking his cheekbone on the first tackle of the game. So this is the guy we're talking about.
It got to this point where he had to give up. All those players, whichever players that he was representing, how do you think they felt about it?
Yeah.
Compared to Latrell? How do you think they would have felt? They have a guy advocating for them, as an assistant coach advocating for them, saying, I think, basically, probably, most likely, you don't know, but most likely on behalf of other players, Latrell and Cody Walker are getting preferential treatment, other players are going to be upset about it. And the club says, too bad, get out, basically. We're not going to change anything. So Sam Burgess says, I'm not going to hang around for this anymore and I'm out. All those other players that had the issue would go, oh my God, nothing is ever going to change. So how do you think that... And it spoke in the results.
Yeah.
They missed the eight.
Somebody quits the club because of him, and he says that it rattles him.
I'm sure it rattled all the other players that had the issue.
It's just strange to me, John. You know, I can't work it out.
No,
it's bizarre.
It's always about Latrell.
And another thing that he said, John, was he was talking about the injury that and we know how South Sydney, their season went off the rails. John led the competition after 11 rounds and then somehow from that position failed to make the top 8, if you can believe that. And Latrell said, it was just hard for me to come back and try and find that form again. It was 10 weeks too long injured, where I wasn't looked after the way I should have been. The idea that, it's all right, Latrell's back, we'll be right again, we'll win again. Just the pressure of that got to me a little bit. But other than that, I think we just lost that drive, that connection, confidence. John, he's on $1 million a year. I'm sorry, if you're on $1 million a year, there is going to be stress that comes with that. There is going to be pressure that comes with that. Yes, if you're on $1 million a year in any job, John, the pressure's going to be on you to perform and deliver results. And if you don't like that, well, don't be on $1 million a year. Don't be an NRL player. Go work 9 to 5 in a Monday to Friday office job that turns into 9 to 7. Get paid $50,000 a year for a boss that doesn't like you. See how much you like that for a living.
They've built the team around him. So yes, the pressure is on him. The pressure isn't unfair. The team has been built around him because he is their highest paid player, their marquee player, their superstar player, their number one player, and also their number one player, the fullback.
Yeah.
The team is built around him. So, and that we've discussed, and every single football expert knows, when you build a team around a single player and that player is out, your team will collapse. So when that player comes back in, the expectation is to fix your team. Newcastle Knights built a team around Andrew Johns, because why wouldn't you?
It's a good player to build a team around, I would have thought, John.
There was
the best player in the history of the game.
With 2005, he was out for the first 14 rounds. And they didn't win a game. They went on a 14-game losing streak. He came back, and he lost his first game back. Then he went and played State of Origin. He won Origin for New South Wales. And then they went on a tear and won a whole bunch of games. Mm-hmm. That is actually the expectation of the $1 million player that you build a team around. If they are out, it's okay. That's actually an excuse you have. The reason we're losing is because we build our whole team around that one player, and that player is out for an extended period of time. When they come back, they're on the big money and the team's built around. They should slot straight back in and everything clicks. There's no pressure. It's just a fact. Someone like, there are better ways to do it, which Penrith is a perfect example. Melbourne. They don't build teams around single players. They build teams around combinations of players. And when one player is out of that combination, they have a fill-in that isn't as good, but can play the role to allow the other players in that combination to step up a little bit. So they take on a little bit more responsibility until that proper person comes back. Nathan Cleary's out. Jack Cogger came in. Jack Cogger filled a role. Jerome Luai's out. Jack Cogger came in, filled that role perfectly, and they won a premiership. In Melbourne, when they had the big four plus Michael Crocker plus everyone. Yeah. Greg Inglis was out. Somebody came in and filled that role. So there's a better way to do it. But the simple fact is the Rabbitohs have built their team around one player, and that one player's one job is to make the team win. Yeah. That's not pressure. That's a fact.
Yeah. And it's just football at the end of the day as well, John, and he's being paid $1 million a year. Some of those, the nurses who worked throughout the pandemic, John, they were under pressure too. A lot more pressure than what Latrell Mitchell's under. And you think they're paid anywhere near what Latrell Mitchell's being paid? They wouldn't be paid 1/10 of what he's being paid, John.
Get paid nothing.
I'm just sick of the whinging, John. Yeah, sick of it.
Latrell always has something to whinge about. But yeah, we can move on.
But look, to finish this discussion, John, I'll be fair about it. He also said this. He said, he actually touched on the fact that, he wants to deliver for the Rabbitohs. He says everything they've been able to sacrifice for me and give to me, I haven't delivered since I've been there. In a sense, we're accomplished something everyone wants, to write my name in the books and maybe win a Clive Churchill along with that. Okay, thanks, Latrell. That's what we want to hear. We want to hear that.
That's all we want to hear.
Yes, that's what we want to hear from you. And we want to see it next year. And let's hope he delivers it, John.
That's all we want to hear. That's it. So
I think we're very fair. I know there's going to be people who take offence to what we say, John. It's 2023.
I only say half of what I say because the social media content.
I think we're very fair the way we cover him, John. As I said, we give credit where it's due, and we give criticism where it's due.
Unfortunately for Latrell, for the past year, he's done a lot of things that warrant criticism and not as many things that warrant credit. Next year, if he does well, he'll get a whole bunch of credit instead, unless he comes out and whinges about it. Because the one thing that I can't stand, that I will always comment on and criticise, is just whinging for no reason. Mm-hmm. So one of the historical things about some players is even though they're winning the competition, they're still whinging. You know, like as much as I hated Cam Smith, simply because I don't hate him personally.
Just
I don't hate any of them personally.
Just as a player.
Hate him because he's Cam Smith.
It's never personal, John.
Hate him because of what he did to New South Wales, what he did to the rest of the competition.
So you hate him in a complimentary way. He was you hate him because he was so good.
Yeah, I loved him when he played for Australia.
You didn't like him for two reasons, John. Number one, he was so good. Number one, that he played for Queensland. Yeah. And number two, because he was so good. Yeah.
So there was a thing many, like when he was playing, obviously, and he ended up with the first player to ever hit 400 games, where he played 42 games in a year or something, and he didn't complain. And that's what I think people should be like, actually. Because he was on top. You know, he was always on top. He was in a team that was always on top. Like every team he was in was always on top. He was in Melbourne. He was in Queensland. He was in Australia. And he never complained, you know? Whereas I can't take these players, and we'll see what happens next year if Latrell is on top. Because my expectation for Latrell Mitchell, again, I don't hate the guy, I don't know the guy, is that he will keep complaining even when he's on top. And that's where he will warrant criticism. Mm. When you're on top, you can't complain. When you're on bottom, don't make excuses. Find reasons and fix them.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll see what happens with him in the next 2 weeks. Because he's going to come
something will happen before Christmas, John.
100%. But so I saw this awesome thing that I wanted to bring up. Mm-hmm. Jackson Hastings, you know, like, he's a big name. He wants to change the way the jerseys are done in rugby league. Mm-hmm. Where instead of being a set number for the position you're in, he wants everyone to be able to choose their number. And also have the names on the back of the jersey.
I don't mind the names on the jersey, but I don't agree with any. No. I like the positional numbers.
I hate other sports that don't have the positional numbers, to be honest.
Because you want to know what position. If you go to a game, John, you want to know who the halfback is, who the 5/8 is.
I like the names. I think that every sport should have the names on their thing. You know, like...
Yeah, so we half agree with Jackson Hastings. We agree they should have the names. We don't agree that they should have any.
If he wants a certain number on the back of his jersey, he's got a choice, 1 to 17. Learn to play that position. He wants to be number 3, become a centre. It's just because, really, when people say this, they all just want number 23, because number 23 is like the best, like statistically, the greatest number of GOATs of sport, whoever is named number 23. You know, Michael Jordan is number 23. That's why.
Shane Warne was number 23.
Everyone wants number 23. Mm-hmm. That's why. When people say it's because they want number 23. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like the Super League actually has this, English Super League, they actually have this, and I don't like it. I hate it. And it's very... and a lot of American sports have it. And there's a big conflict when players go between teams. Over their numbers, because sports personalities are actually really superstitious. They get so invested. You know, I always wear the same gi whenever I compete in jiu-jitsu. 100% of the time in gi jiu-jitsu, I wear the same gi. Since I started wearing that gi, I have medaled in every competition I've been in, and so I will always wear that gi. Go look at my old competitions. I'm not wearing that gi. I don't medal. In some of the competitions, I don't even win a match. But as soon as I started wearing that gi, the first time I know in my head that it's actually because I started winning, because I started to take competing seriously and training properly and going in with game plans and actually working with the coach and all that kind of stuff. Doesn't matter. That gi is the gi. And I also don't wear it for 2 weeks before competitions. So when they go to new teams and it's like somebody has their number, it becomes a big thing, actually. Somebody has to sacrifice a number. And it does create issues. Like, it really does. There are, like, historically stories of things like this where players went to other teams and it was a big issue and that they couldn't get their number. And then other players were forced to give up numbers and things like that and made them unhappy and leave the team. So, yeah. But I love the names. I wish they all had their names. Because some of them look the same. Like, Makes it difficult when you have Brett Morris and Josh Morris, but they can put J Morris and B Morris, and then I know which one is which.
It's like back in the old cricket days, M War and S War.
Yeah,
exactly.
The back of their Sometimes you can't fit them. Sure.
Yeah. I had M War on the back of my Australian cricket jersey when I was a kid, John. Yeah.
So I saw because I was researching this, of course, those social media algorithms came up and popped me because, honestly, just because you're not on social and you're on a website and reading news, that news website has a Facebook pixel that is monitoring everything you read, and then it will send it to Instagram and tell Instagram what to show you. So I saw one of those Instagram influencers, like, those guys that speak really profoundly, but are actually just scam artists. There's so many of them, right? Mm-hmm. He's one of the famous ones. I don't know his name because I don't know any of their names because there's so many of them. He was talking about how he would never let a child of his wear any name but their own on the back of their jersey because they should be their own hero. And I was like, oh, it's so profound. That's lame. I have a Gaznia jersey, right? Like, shut up. I can worship Mark Gaznia. I got a big number 3 and a Gaznia across the back. So, yeah.
Okay, John, I'll just put in that Josh Addo-Carr thinks
he's been missing for a while. First of all, let me just say, he's been missing in action for a while, which has been a good thing.
Yeah, and so John, he's come out and said he thinks he would carve up in rugby union. John, after he got involved in a brawl at the Koori knockout and made those very controversial comments about the Israel-Palestine conflict going on, and then he had a crisis meeting with Phil Gould to sort of calm the waters. I would have thought after that sequence of events, maybe it's a good idea for Addo-Carr to just...
Yeah, we haven't heard from him for a while.
Button up the lips for a while, John.
It's easier to say, not easy to do, anyway. It's such a nonsense thing, actually, to just say... There's a lot of rugby league players who have the potential, or had the potential, to do well in rugby union. But there's also a lot of rugby league players who you think would do well that don't. Jared Hayne didn't do well. He walked into the Fiji Olympics team, World Cup team. I can't remember which in rugby union.
Yeah.
Nines.
I think he wanted to play for Fiji at the Olympics in the sevens. I think.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, and I don't. From memory, John, I don't think he made the team.
Yeah,
and didn't get the.
There's no denying that Jared Hayne was an exceptional player. There's multiple-time Dally M, I believe.
Well, he won it in 2009. I know that, John. Might have to look that one up.
Yeah, we'll just check it to confirm. So I'll say I gotta find Dally M. Was Dally M Rookie of the Year, and then 2009, 2014.
Yeah, so 2-time Dally M medal.
So best player in the NRL, couldn't make it in rugby.
And he did make it into the NFL. Yeah,
it didn't make it in NFL either. He got on the train.
Yeah, but at least that's true. He didn't, but he did actually make a team and make like that in itself is a huge
and he couldn't
achievement. John, it's very it's
rugby union is not as much the same as rugby league as a lot of ignorant people think it is. It actually even requires a different body shape, different muscles.
I think...
And just to go on about, like a lot of...
For a player like him, and look, we've talked about, obviously the circumstances surrounding Addo-Carr at the moment, he's better off not saying these things. But yeah, looking at what he's actually said, I think... For a player like him, he needs the open space of rugby league, John. Rugby union, it's 15 a side.
It's super different.
And the ball gets, sometimes in rugby union, if a tackle's made and they have that ruck, the ball can get stuck there for 10 minutes, John. Josh Addo-Carr just sitting out there on the wing waiting for it to come to him, he might only touch the ball once or twice a game.
If he's on the wing, he will.
I just don't know.
If you look at someone like
this, I would have thought this is one of the last things he should be coming out and saying at the moment, John.
Wendell Saylor made it be good in rugby league is because wingers and outside backs in rugby union, they're not line break machines and try finishers. Actually, they're a completely different body shape. Wendell Saylor went well in rugby union because he could play back row in rugby league. But I would never in a million years put Josh Addo-Carr in the back row.
No.
Never.
He's a winger, and he relies on open space. And look, to be fair, John, once he gets into open space, there's no stopping him.
He's a finisher.
Yeah, he's a finisher. He's one of the best finishers in the game. Rugby union would stifle him, John. He wouldn't get a look in. If he's worried about not getting enough of a look in rugby league, that may or may not be the case. But even if that is the case, it would be 10 times worse in rugby union.
He'd never touch the ball.
No.
And you've also got to be able to kick if you're one of the backs in rugby.
If he was, you're a winger in rugby union, you can put the rug down, John, and sit down and make yourself a cup of tea and just chill out for a while.
What you've got to do is when you get the ball close to the line, run onto it and barge over.
Yeah.
There's no acrobatics diving over the line, keeping your feet in the air over the post and doing backflips and stuff in rugby union tries. They're barge overs or close line breaks of quality passing. But, man, you know what Josh Addo-Carr actually should do? Carve up in rugby league.
Yes. Next year. His team needs him.
Zip your mouth. Yeah. Zip it, and just carve up in rugby league.
And that's the thing, John. I think, I'm being fair again. I think he has, in a really struggling team, he's performed well for the Bulldogs in his 2 years at the club. I think it's 27 tries in 38 games. That's a very good strike rate. We've talked many times about the Bulldogs' lack of a good spine. To have that strike rate, 27 tries from 38 games, in a team that doesn't have a good spine and that's third last on the ladder, that's very impressive, John. And we need to see more of it from him.
He also, in his first year, he took him a while to score. So that it increases the strike rate. It makes it out that program. I think he was scoreless for 12 games or something ridiculous like that. Yeah. It was really rare, really strange, but based on Bulldogs not being able to convert.
Yeah.
And so it's actually I saw a thing about it earlier this year. It's actually 27 tries in 27 games kind of thing as well. After he's finally...
Oh, right, yeah, so you're factoring in the fact that he went that long period.
There's 27 tries in 38 games or whatever it is. But if you delve really deep down into the statistics, it took him a while to score a try. I can't remember exactly what it was because it was a few weeks ago. It was 10 games without or something.
He's a great player, John, and as I've said, I've been a defender of him before. He's a great player. He's a player who people want to pay to watch play. He gets people talking. He gets people through the gates. He's an entertainer. He puts on a show for everybody. And in open space, there's no one better. No one's getting near him. But we just need him to just pull his head in a bit here, John. There's just no need, especially considering how thin... He was on thin ice at the Bulldogs before this, given what's happened.
Yep.
There's just no need for comments like this, John.
It's just basically be quiet and score tries.
That's right, John. Okay, is it time for our most overrated player discussion?
All right, who have you got? Who do you think is the most overrated players in rugby league? Because I've got one and one only, and I've got all of his stats on the stats.
Do you want me to?
You can kick it off and we'll discuss them.
John. Okay. Sorry, it's just somewhere here. I think it's at the back of my notes. This one. Sorry. Yeah. So. John, I'm just going to name a few to start off. So I've actually got 4 for you.
Harsh.
So maybe, this is the thing, John, but I'm a bit concerned that given the outrage machine that operates in 2023, that people are going to get so upset with what we're about to say. But all we're doing, John, this is not personal attacks against these players. We're just saying that they're more highly rated than they should be as footballers. We're not personally attacking the players. I have to put disclaimer. Yeah. I have to qualify everything these days, John, because people get so sensitive and upset about everything.
Don't worry, if it goes on Twitter, I'll have a laugh.
Okay, so John, I think I'll give you 2 players I think who are overrated. I think Ben Hunt and Matt Burton are both overrated. John.
Ben Hunt's my man.
Okay, all right. So should I just continue and then So
I'll give you my reasoning.
So, actually, all right. So I might start with the others then, John, and then I'll come back to Ben Hunt, and then you can finish with Ben Hunt. So, I think John. I think Latrell Mitchell is overrated. He's on $1 million a year. His salary. As I said before, there was so much drama around him this year. Gets injured, gets suspended a lot. As we mentioned,
Doesn't
Sam
try.
Burgess walked out on the club over him. He didn't chase for players in the defensive line. He had that drama with Cam Murray in that video session where apparently, according to reports, he said to Cam Murray, when I call for it, give it to me. And Murray replied, most of the time, you're not there. Then we had that situation where he pulled out of the Kangaroos squad with a finger injury and then played in the Koori knockout tournament. Then we had him whinging about every other thing on social media every other week. He wasn't worth the $1 million this season, John. His team didn't even make the 8 after leading the competition after 11 rounds. He's not worth $1 million a year because he doesn't play his best football often enough, John. He gets too distracted by other matters. As we said, if you're on $1 million a year, you're paid to play well in at least 80% of your games, I would have thought. Latrell plays well, maybe once every 6 weeks, so he's overrated. I know he was out injured for a lot of the year as well, John, and they didn't do well with him injured, but when he came back, they didn't do well either, John.
They lost their last 8 or whatever the hell it was.
That's the thing, John.
Difference.
I'm going to give you another one, which, it's a bit close to the bone, but... We're not here to make friends with these players, John. I
don't know them, so it's fine.
We're here for the fans, John. That's why we're doing this podcast.
Don't worry, if they ever came up to me and said, you're the guy who called me the most overrated, I'd apologise and say it was just for the likes.
Again, it's not personal. We're just saying they're rated more highly than what they should be as football players. I'm sure they're all nice people, John. Okay, Jake Trbojevic, John. He's on $950,000.
He was my other one that I was going to toss up.
Okay, well, for me, that's way too much for a lock forward, that sort of money. I wouldn't pay him more than $600,000 a year, John. I got to be honest, John. I think he's only on $950,000 as a way of Manly keeping his brother happy. I think if his brother wasn't a teammate of his, the great Tom Trbojevic, I think he'd be on a lot less money than that. Again, I'm not saying that he shouldn't be an NRL player. I'm just saying he's paid $950,000 when he should be paid about $600,000. So in my mind, that makes him overrated.
I think he's an Origin player, bench Origin player.
Yeah, and there are Origin players who are on $600,000 a year.
Yeah, that's what they say. I think he's a bench Origin player and a bench Australian player who would be better suited to a $600,000 a year paycheck, earning that rest of the money from the rep. Whatever it is now, like $30,000 an Origin game and $20,000. I don't know what the numbers are, but basically earning his extra like $200,000 a year from rep. Mm-hmm. So if he plays well, then he'll earn that extra $200,000, $300,000 or whatever it is from rep. If he doesn't, then that's why he's overrated. Actually, I agree. So when I went and looked up Ben Hunt's salary, and I found a list of the 10 highest paid people in rugby league. And also in their positions. And Jake Trbojevic was on it. And then I was like, I didn't know he got paid that much. Maybe he's actually more overrated. But as a side, I saw Tom Trbojevic, and I also think Tom Trbojevic is overrated simply because he is prone to injuries. There are some players that people will say are injury prone. Like Andrew John, people used to say was injury prone. Jonathan Thurston's injury prone stuff. But when you look at it, actually they weren't. They did miss some long periods of time. Like I said, Andrew Johns missed 14 weeks in 2005. But for the rest of their career...
And then he came back. And then I think Newcastle were coming last.
Yeah, they were last.
And then he came back and I think they got close to making the 8.
And he almost won the Dally M. I think he was second in the Dally M.
I think Thurston might have beat him 2 at that year.
Because he only played 9 games or whatever it is. Whereas Tom Trbojevic has one good game, okay, and it's like, this is Tom Trbojevic year, has a couple of okay games, and then gets injured for 6 weeks. Comes back. I
get it.
Has a couple of games, and then a good game.
So, that's the thing. By overrated, we're not talking about when he's on the field and fit. When he's on the field and fit, there is no better player. And in 2021, he had an unbelievable season where he won the Dally M medal. But you're saying he's overrated in the sense that his team are not getting the value out of him because he's injured.
I'd say overpaid is probably a better description, simply because he doesn't work as much as he should.
That's why to be honest, I wouldn't call Tom overrated, but I would call Jake overrated.
Yeah. So as part of that, it just highlights that if Tom Trbojevic, Jake Trbojevic is being overpaid overs to keep Tom around, it actually makes Jake even worse.
So if you sit down, What do we reckon? So Jake Trbojevic is on 950 grand, John. So would we agree that maybe 600 grand is a
good,
more... Yeah. Okay, so he's being paid, in our opinion, $350,000 more than what he should be. So then we've got to take whatever Tom Trbojevic is earning and basically add 350,000 to it.
He's apparently on 1.1.
Okay, so let's add... So it's 1.45. Yes. And so we have to... So 1.45 million for a player who gets injured all the time.
Yeah.
Who, when he's on the field, there's no better player.
Absolutely.
But he gets injured all the time.
So his cycle is plays really well, even in a losing team, gets injured, comes back and takes a few weeks to hit his stride, plays really well.
Yes.
Sometimes in a losing team, and then gets injured again.
Yes.
And so he's definitely not worth 1.4.
And so at some point, if you're Manly, you've got to sit down and work out, look, we know how great this guy is when he's on the field and fit, but he's just not on the field and fit often enough for us to justify paying him this amount, which isn't really 1.1 million, John. If we factor in the extra his brother's getting, it's more like 1.45 million a year.
So Tom Trbojevic is also old now.
How old
27.
is he now? Right, so he's getting up there, John.
Okay, and so he's been playing since 2015, so it's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. He's played 9 years, right? I mean, he's obviously not getting paid 1.1 million or 1.4 million or whatever for those 9 years, but he's averaging 14 games a year. Yeah. And so that it makes him, like I said, overrated is not the good.
No, I wouldn't call Tom Trbojevic overrated.
Overpaid.
But I would call Jake Trbojevic overrated.
He's overpaid, and then in doing that, he makes Jake Trbojevic even more overrated because Jake Trbojevic is getting paid extra to keep him around.
Yeah. So effectively, you've got to add whatever extra Jake's getting to Tom's salary.
There's a third one, right? Trbojevic brother?
Is it Ben Trbojevic?
Yeah, Ben Trbojevic. He also plays for Manly. So how much are they going to overpay Ben to keep Tom? But yeah, Tom's getting on now. He's getting old. He's 27.
Yeah, and Manly have a high-risk salary cap strategy where they put a lot of their money into not many players. Like Daly Cherry Evans, we know, is on huge money as well. It's a high-risk strategy, John. To be honest, at least they have a strategy. A lot of clubs don't have one, so I'll give Manly that. But that's high risk, John. If those players you pump a lot of money into are not on the field enough, it's gonna backfire.
And that's why Manly weirdly missed the 8 this year.
Yes. If we continue on with our other overrated players here, John. Another one I have to mention is, I'm going to do two together here, John, to finish my spiel, and then I'll let you go after me. Ben Hunt and Matt Burton, John, essentially for the same reason. They're chief playmakers for their teams who clearly have no impact on the result. Their teams came second last and third last this year, respectively, John. Reportedly, Burton is on $750,000 a year, a $3 million 4-year deal. He's not worth that, John. Ben Hunt is on $1.1 million a year. That money should only be reserved for players who get you into the finals on their own. And Ben Hunt is clearly not one of those players, John. So I hand you the floor,
to address Burton.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think on Monday, I thought when he signed with the Bulldogs and after a few weeks, because he was the most sought-after player, young player, in the league. Many, many teams wanted him. Penrith wanted to hold on to him. Then he went to the Bulldogs, and he wasn't all that. And I thought Penrith had actually pulled a big trick. They had tricked everyone. Convinced them that Burton was like the bee's knees, when actually he was just average, and kind of scammed everyone to offer overs so they wouldn't try and buy the other players. That's what I thought this. I floated this with friends. I was like, I think this is a scam. He is very good now, but he's definitely not worth $750 a year. But I think now, as of this year, he's a beginner half that should be on like $500,000 because that's the minimum you'd pay a half, right? Like $500,000, $400,000.
Again, we're not saying that these players can't play, John. We're just saying that they're overrated. But they can play. They're all, they're all good players. He should never
have got $750 3 years ago or whatever. Yeah. Was it 3 years ago he started at the Bulldogs?
I think he started. Was it the start of 2021, John?
I think this was
his 2022.
Third year. 2019 Penrith Junior. I think this was his third year. Oh, no, second year, 2020.
They did start in 2022, yeah.
So, yeah, but he might move to centre next year, and then that may be... So 750 is really good for a centre. That's probably the most you pay for a centre, unless they're a game-changing centre that's eventually going to become a fullback.
Yeah. Look, but I think they're on the right track in thinking that he should move into the... If they can get better halves options there, John...
Yeah.
You know, you're paying him that amount, all right, it is what it is. You can't do anything about it. You may as well make best use of him. And if that's out in the centres, it's out in the centres, John.
So...
but, yeah, anyway...
so, Ben Hunt, though...
I give you the floor here, John.
Ben Hunt is one of the rare players. So first of all, he's the fifth highest paid player in the NRL, 1.1 million. He was brought to the Dragons in 2018, much lauded as going to be the guy they build a team around, right? So he's one of the players in the rare 300 squad. As of now, he's at 312 games, 187 with the Broncos, 125 with the Dragons. Now, he's old. He's been around forever. He's played 300 games. Okay. He's 33 years of age, so he's only got 2-3 years left in him. He's played 15 games for Australia, 17 games for Queensland, 5 for the PM13s, and 5 for the Australia Nines. That one I didn't know.
Oh, right, okay.
Now, this is where the overratedness comes down to. His win percentage, okay? Because he's got a total win percentage of 50% in the NRL, which is obviously adversely affected by the Dragons not doing well. But his job was to make the Dragons do well. He's 55% in Brisbane. He did play under Wayne Bennett as well, who as a coach has a positive win percentage. 42% at the Dragons, which is terrible. This is where it gets terrible, actually worse. He's got a 46.67% win rate in the NRL finals, so less than 50% win rate in finals. Think of the maximum finals you can play is 4 to win a premiership. In 1 year.
Yeah.
So he's basically not getting out of the second round of the finals ever.
Yep.
He played in the Four Nations at a 66.67% win rate in the Four Nations. This is an Australian team. He had a 66%, so he won. It's 2 out of 3 actually. He won.
Yeah.
Now, he's got a 52% win rate in State of Origin. He plays for Queensland, and he continually plays in losing sides for Queensland.
And that's the thing, he's been around a while, John. He was around in the era where Queensland were a very dominant side.
Yes.
I know they won 11 out of 12 series. I know he wasn't around for all of those series, John, but he was around for some of that time.
Origin debut was 2017.
There you go. Well, to be fair to him, that was the tail end of that, or that was the last year of that 11 out of 12. Yeah. But still, for Queensland... Yeah. You're not singing from the rooftops about 50%.
His overall win rate for Australia even is 80% in 15 appearances. Again, when Ben Hunt plays, for no matter the team, they tend to have a win rate that is worse than it should be. Yeah. Australia should never have an 80% win rate for anyone. Now, it's obviously not him causing all the losing because it wasn't his fault they won last.
That's the thing, John. It's not one player's fault when a team loses, but the fact of the matter is he is on $1.1 million a year and his team came second last this year. So for whatever reason, John, he does not have an impact on the result for his team. And if you're being paid $1.1 million a year, you have to have an impact on the result, John. You've got to win games by yourself. You've got to get your team into the top 8 by yourself on that money. That's not the only year that Ben Hunt has played for the Dragons where they came second last either. Exactly. Because 2015, he came in 2018, we came 7th. That was the last time Dragons were in the finals. 2018? Yeah, 2018, 7th. And 2019 was 15th, second last. And then 2020 was 12th. Oh, we saw improvement. 2021, 10th. Yeah. 2022, 11th. 2023, the only reason we didn't come last is because there's 17 teams. Okay, so how many... Sorry, was it... what year did he start? 2018. We made the finals was that was the last time he made the finals? So you can't say he took them to the finals. So he's only made the final... As the chief playmaker at the Dragons since 2018. Captain. That's 5 years ago now. That's a long time. Yep. Since 2018, they've only made the finals once with Ben Hunt as the chief playmaker. So once out of 6 seasons. And he continues to be paid $1.1 million a year. So he's overrated, John. That's just when you look at all of these other guys that we talked about,
They have achievements, okay? They have things like... this is why I think Ben Hunt is the most overrated, no matter what, across the league.
You know what? I'd agree. If I named some names there, John, but if I had to put it, I had to get it down to one player, I'm agreeing it's Ben Hunt.
They have achievements. Like I said, Tom Trbojevic won the Dally M. Even club achievements, they have achievements. The only achievement
Latrell Mitchell as well.
Yeah. The only achievement Ben Hunt has is the 2019 and 2021 Ron McAuliffe Medal, which is a medal I hadn't heard of and had to look up what it was. It's Queensland's best player of the series. So that's awarded by your peers. So
that's why the Dragons, they're better off without him, John. It's too much money. Yeah. Just let him go. If he wants to go, let him go and rebuild, because with him they're coming second last, John.
Yeah, twice
and
they've only,
and further to that, as you pointed out, only one finals appearance with him there since 2018. 5 years ago.
5 years, 6 seasons.
Something needs to change there, John. You don't want the Dragons to turn into the West Tigers, John,
but
where they don't address their problems.
They're well on their way to doing that because they don't address their problems.
Well, if you don't address your problems, you end up like the West Tigers. Yeah. It's that simple. So if you're one of those struggling clubs, like my club, the Bulldogs, like your club, the Dragons, John, you need to get on top of these problems before they fester.
And the continued nonsense around him with will they, won't they kiss or dump each other.
Yeah.
It just makes him even more and more overrated because that's like, out of all the players in the entire league, it's unfortunate for me because I'm such a big Dragons fan. We hold the most overrated player. He's paid way too much. 5th highest player in the league. Made the finals once in 6 seasons, and it was the first season in which you can't give them a lot of people first seasons. You can't. He's had no positive effect on the team he's in, and on other teams he's been in, they tend to have a worse winning percentage than they are. I think he'd be best suited going off and playing hooker for a team that doesn't rely on him as anything. He's an addition to the team as opposed to expected to have any responsibility.
Yeah. I think it's a good discussion.
For $500,000 a year.
Yeah, I think it's a good discussion we've had, John.
And we can...
And there will be... This is only the start of our provocative...
Don't worry, maybe next time most overrated player in cricket.
Rugby league discussions where we're going to have more... So that's not the only one. Stay tuned to our coming podcast. We're going to have plenty more discussions
most
like that.
Most annoying coach.
The possibilities are endless,
it's Ricky
John.
Stewart.
We will talk about... We will do up a bit of a list of topics. We're going to do one in each podcast, John. And we will chat about it. Stay tuned for our next one. There's more of these interesting discussions to come.
Of course, there's some AFL news. Got to move on to some AFL.
Yeah, John, I put in there that Josh Daicos has said that he's not happy with... He went over and visited some of the EPL clubs, John, and... He's not happy, if you can believe it, with the treatment that AFL clubs and players get compared to the ones in the EPL. He said, it's quite amazing the disparity in wealth over there. They were telling me that when they are training, and obviously it's quite cold when they play, so they have heaters for the ground to make sure the ground is not frosted. So we don't get that sort of treatment.
The Premier League's TV deal. You know the Premier League, the English Premier League, used to be the Barclays Premier League, but they got such a big TV deal that they didn't need a sponsor for the competition anymore, and Barclays was the company that sponsored them. Their TV deal is £5 billion, so 10 million Australian dollars.
Yeah.
Okay, they generate something like $15 billion in revenue for the organisation. So you can't compare. If he thinks the EPL is good, individual clubs, $5.54 billion in pounds in revenue. Individual clubs.
He also said, John, that going over to Europe and going to Tottenham, I saw the treatment they got, and I was quite flat about the treatment we get. Quite flat. As I said before, John, there were nurses who worked throughout the pandemic without sleeping, double shifts, did what they could to keep us safe. On, when you think about what they do on, not enough money, John, let's be fair about it. Josh Daicos gets paid huge money to play football for a living, John. He's won the lotto in life with the job that he has and the life that he has. Don't go complaining about sports stars overseas in leagues that are much bigger than the AFL, who get paid a lot more and treated better than you, when you're treated really well here and get paid really well here. As I said before, John, if these footballers don't like the life they've got, go quit your job. Go work in an office job where you work 60 hours a week and get paid $50,000 a year.
So
enjoy that.
Look, the AFL is it's the 14th highest revenue sporting league in the world. They average around $5 million in revenue per match. And Australian football, it is, where is it? About $1 billion in revenue. It's nothing to, that's not bad. It's pretty good. It's 18,
nothing to be sneezed at, John.
18 teams. Okay. The EPL is the 4th highest. So that's not, if he wants to go look at some good stuff, he should go look at the NFL. Okay. So to compare, the EPL generates, I was a little bit off, $16 billion in revenue.
Yeah. There you go, John. You summed it up perfectly.
Compared to the NFL, NFL is $59 billion. So don't complain.
Yeah.
Be happy with what you've got.
Yeah.
You earn big dollars.
He's won the lotto in life, John.
Honestly.
And look, I'm not like these social justice warriors you talk about on Twitter, John, who say, these footballers shouldn't be paid that much. No, I'm not like them. They deserve the money they're getting, John.
Well, they generate $1 billion in revenue.
They're playing professional sport. They deserve to get paid what they get paid, these AFL players and NRL players.
Oh.
But good luck to them. They've won the lotto in life, good luck to them. They're playing professional sport and they get good money. But don't complain about it as well. Yeah. You've got that life.
No, that's what I was saying before.
Yeah, you've got that life. Don't complain.
When you're on top, don't complain.
Yeah.
AFL is the only... the NRL is the 27th highest revenue in the world. Yeah. So this is out of the top 119. That's quite a difference, 14th to 27th. Maybe he should go see what the NRL players are. You had... Trent Barrett at Manly bringing his own personal outdoor furniture down to the clubhouse so the players could sit on. You want to complain to me about this? Don't complain when you're on top, man.
That's the thing, John. Like, a lot of people do it tough in life, John. Like, there's cost of living pressures. There's pressure on a lot of people at the moment. It's not easy, like living, and especially living in a big city like Sydney or Melbourne. It's not easy to pay the bills. So if you're in a fortunate position where you're on huge money doing what you love, don't complain about it. So
there's, like I always say with these guys, I'm the same as you. I'm not one of those social justice warriors and virtue signalers that says they shouldn't get paid as much. But because what you've really got to understand about a lot of these football players and sports players is they will make their career earnings, lifetime earnings, in 15 years. And then after that, they return to the bottom kind of thing or have nothing.
Yeah.
So... I will work for, what's the retirement age now? 70?
Yeah.
Probably going to work till I die. But
probably even 75.
Yeah,
it will, by the time we get there, John, it'll probably be 75.
So for 55, 60 years, I'm going to be earning, what's the average, $70,000 a year or whatever the hell the lifetime average is, right? These guys are professional football players or professional sports players generally only work in their chosen career for it's on average around 1/3 to 1/4 of the amount of time that normal people will work. So need to earn the same amount of money. Because after that 15 years, you walk into the labour force, if you haven't invested well and stuff like that, unskilled and completely unskilled. A lot of the young guys now in the leagues in Australia they're required to either have an apprenticeship or a course while they're playing when they're young, when they're under 20 or under 21 and stuff like that. But think about it, 21 years old, you finish your... I could tell you from personal experience, diploma in IT. I did a diploma in IT when I was 18 years old. When I turned 20, I did a diploma in IT again because everything I had learned 2 years ago, completely redundant. When I was 23, I did a diploma in IT again.
That's the real world, John.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the real world.
So these guys earn the money, so they do their diplomas of IT when they're young. But you got to think, when they come out after 15 years, the diploma of IT they did 15 years ago is useless. So that's why they have to earn a lot of money, because they've got that 15, maybe 20 years of life to earn everything for their life, for the rest of their life. And then they'll come out and they might be able to find a minimum wage job unless they've invested well, bought property. And yeah, like more so than a lot of other world sports, NRL and the AFL do wonders. They provide financial advisors, stuff like that. Clubs do with the players, especially the young ones and stuff like that. It's very, very new, like, last 10 years or so. But, you have people like Floyd Mayweather who made $1 billion and owed $800 million in back taxes. Because in a lot of other sports, they're not taken care of. And they don't come out very well at the end of it.
Yeah, and a lot of people are just not, they're just not good with money, John. They don't have a background in finance. A lot of the time, I don't want to get too off track, but a lot of the time, the schools don't teach you enough about how to manage your money, John. So a lot of people just have no idea how to manage money. And if they have big spending habits and expensive spending habits, well, they just bomb it all, John.
And so these
that's
guys.
Real world. So
Josh Daicos needs to calm down about his complaints, and the people in general need to calm down about their expectation that these guys should earn a more even salary, because it's lifetime rather than individual year. So anyway. I did see a quote from Kane Corns, who's a former Port Adelaide player, now media commentator, that said Gold Coast and North Melbourne have been, he's rated them as having made the best draft picks. Now, generally, the teams who have the best draft pick order will make the best draft picks. So that's not like rocket science. Yes. Gold Coast and North Melbourne. Okay, but...
Well, that's how it works, right? You finish down the bottom, you get the first picks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's not rocket science, Kane. But what he did say, which I thought was really good, was they now have no excuses to not become powerhouse teams within the next 3 to 5 years, based on their picks and the players that they got and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting. I agree. Actually, I fully agree with this. I've talked about it. We've talked about it at length with the North Melbourne leg up. Like these guys, and that's how AFL works. You pick young players and you have to develop them, but within the next few years, both of these teams shouldn't be on the bottom of the ladder. And if they are, then, it's the kind of thing where they have to implode their own club, fire everyone and start again, because apparently the picks they picked are just phenomenal. They're all players you can build teams around.
And this is the problem with the AFL in this instance, John, is that teams are helped out of their struggles by the AFL's draft system, and then they're not earning their success. The AFL's helping them, and that's the problem. North Melbourne have had all this special treatment, John. We've talked about it at length before. And so if we get to that, I've said it before, John, if we get to that point in 5 years down the track where North Melbourne are one of those top 4 clubs again, people are going to go, well, you're only here because the AFL helped you out of trouble with all these favours they did for you. They wouldn't have earned their success by making better decisions. If you make poor decisions to get where you are, a place you don't want to be, you need to make better decisions to get out of it.
Yeah.
You can't have somebody help you out of it. And that's what the AFL have done here with North Melbourne.
Yeah, and if they don't...
It's a competition. It's not a marketing exercise. It's not a socialist conference, John.
Socialists. Your left-wing social justice warriors. So if they don't... it's going to take 2-3 years for them to build. But in 2 or 3 years, if they aren't solid powerhouse teams... What's it going to look like to the AFL, to the rest of the world looking at the AFL?
And that's another thing we said before. The fact that they've done all these favours for them, if it doesn't work out for them after all these favours that have been done, it's going to look even worse, John. Yeah. The Gold Coast Suns had all that help when they came in. They signed Gary Ablett Jr. and they've never made the finals, John. And they've been in for 12 years. How bad does that look after all the favours that were done for them when they first came in?
Do they have the futures up? There was yes, they do the futures up. So the Suns this was one of the things, because they're expected to actually do well next year. Now, again, bet with your head, not over it. For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or go to gamblinghelpline.org.au. I'm going to put a sneaky 10 on the Suns to win the premiership because they're paying $34, which sounds bad. But at this point in time, Collingwood's $5.50 out to West Coast $2.51. So they're
there's
sitting.
Nothing wrong with a $10 bet, John.
They're sitting a lot higher than they should be. You know, like not they should be. They're sitting a lot higher, and they're reminding me kind of like the Tigers of 2005. They could be the sneaky one that gets in. So I'm putting a tenner on.
What's $10, John?
Yeah, exactly.
$10 is responsible betting.
I really like this.
We encourage responsible gambling.
Gossip around the water cooler is they're actually expected to do really well next year.
Should be interesting, John.
So yeah, AFL, bunch of whingers. The Nikita Tszyu, just quickly, the Nikita Tszyu fight was last night. Nikita Tszyu won by TKO in the 5th round. He did overcome adversity and get knocked down in the first round. In the 5th round, he won by TKO. Overcome adversity after getting knocked down in the first round. In the end, the thing that everybody wanted to know, greatest riddle in combat sports history, Nikita walked second.
Yeah, right, there you go.
So Biggs had to walk out first as the champion, stand in the ring and watch Nikita walk out. One really cool thing about this is it means that Tszyu family's combined record in Australia, moves to 48-0 between them all, between Costa, Tim and Nikita. Costa's had 18-0 with 15 KOs. Tim's at 22-0 with 16 KOs, and Nikita is 8-0 with 7 KOs. So if there is a Tszyu family member fighting in Australia, it's a good bet, again, bet with your head not over it, to put money on a TKO or KO finish for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because 48-0 with 38 KOs for the Tszyu family in Australia. Yeah. But yeah, he walked.
There's nothing wrong with that record.
He walked second. It's the funniest thing ever on you, Georgie Rose. So we had some awesome fun times in the Davis Cup this morning.
Yeah, John. So Australia got through. Bit of a hiccup at the start. Jordan Thompson, he lost in straight sets. Yeah, it went down to. Well, he went down 6-4-7-5 in his match, John. This was against the Czech Republic. But the Aussies came back and won the doubles rubber. Alex de Minaur won. Alex de Minaur then came back from a set down to win his singles rubber to level it at 1-1, John.
Saved us.
Yeah, and then Matt Ebden and Max Purcell won the doubles rubber 6-4-7-5. So Australia winning that tie against the Czech Republic 2-1. They now go through to the semi-finals to play against Finland of all teams, John.
Who's in Finland?
To be honest, John, I've got no idea.
I'll see if I can pull them up. Yeah. It can be hard to find. It's Virtanen. It's a historic win. Oh, okay, cool. Finland's best ever Davis Cup run continued on Tuesday in a final 8 to the final in Malaga. Otto Virtanen scored wins in singles and doubles to send his country through to the semi-finals at the expense of defending champion Canada. I don't know who that guy is. Otto Virtanen.
Yeah, don't know who he is, John.
Then team with Harry Heliovara. You know?
No, never heard of him.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway,
so they'll play Australia.
Excuse me. The Aussies are through, John. They made the final this last year, got beaten in the final of the Davis Cup last year. So they last won the Davis Cup in 2003, John, 20 years ago. So hoping that they can get it done this year into the semi-finals. And no one really jumps out at me on that Finland team list that you just went through, John. So
I think
Australia's chances of making the final again are pretty good.
I've left the page and I can't remember who it was.
Yeah.
No offence, Finland, but
the good news is, John, if we haven't heard of the players, Australia are a good chance of winning, I think. So, that'll be interesting, John. That's something for us to keep our eye on Monday. I think by then we'll have the winner of the Davis Cup. So let's hope it's hope it's Australia, John.
Okay. Oh, hopefully, yeah. That's cool. Is that all in tennis?
Yes, it is, John. Yeah.
We do love a bit of tennis. I'm very pumped for the Australian Open, actually. I've
be
been offered some tickets.
Oh, yeah?
So I don't know if I'm going to give them away or go to Melbourne. We'll see. Depends on what the tickets are. Because they just said, I got some tickets. Someone that I know said, I got some tickets for you for the Australian Open. It could be like opening round outside court.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Bill and Bob from Marrickville playing each other. Because that is how Grand Slams kind of tend to work. So, in other sports news, Sonny Bill, my man.
Yeah, so
your best friend.
There's been some scathing comments that he's made about Eddie Jones, John. So these are the quotes from Sonny Bill. It's explosive stuff. He says about Eddie Jones. Obviously, he had that meeting with Japanese rugby, Sonny Bill told the Sydney Morning Herald. It says a lot about his character, to be honest. It's comical. I still can't believe it. I saw straight through his antics and his big talking. This is a bloke who has a track record of burning bridges, coming from the guy who walked out of his club without telling them.
Glass houses.
The club that came last in 2008, the year that he jumped on a plane to France to play rugby, didn't tell any of them, bailed well before his contract had finished.
Sonny Williams on his passport.
That is pot calling kettle, John, if ever you've seen.
I think glass houses, stones.
And so he goes on to say the things that he's done, if he was a player, you wouldn't stand for it. It's quite nice that they are being held accountable, just like the players are. I commend the board on making the decision to remove McLennan as Hamish McLennan, the CEO, has been sacked, John, and not fussing around, Williams said. I called it before the World Cup with Eddie, that it wasn't the right thing and it backfired tremendously. Egos need to be left at the door. Remembering who's talking here. The public deserves better and so do these players. So Sonny Bill also wasn't happy with Eddie Jones' comments regarding Michael Hooper, Bernard Foley and Quade Cooper, John. Apparently Eddie Jones said that these players weren't picked in his World Cup squad because they weren't good role models. So Sonny Bill says, I found those comments disgusting. I was really upset for those lads. The sad thing was that he couldn't just leave with dignity. Okay.
Sonny Williams on the passport.
Yeah, I wonder, does this guy ever look in the mirror, John? He had to leave with some firing shots by calling Hooper, Foley and Quade not role model material. What does that make him?
So, you know...
And then another thing he said, John, he said transparency is key.
Oh, Sonny Bill.
Oh.
I know Quade Cooper.
There you go, John. I thought that was worth throwing in for a bit of a laugh.
I know Quade Cooper is actually one of those Coda NASA Sonny Bill crew. You know, that Anthony Mundine, he's in that crew. Quade Cooper 10 years ago was in the news every week and was one of those, like, jerk-off type players. There was kind of controversy surrounding him. And then he disappeared and pulled his head in and went on to become a champion. I didn't agree with him being left out either, and I didn't agree with Eddie Jones talking smack about him or Hooper on the way out. But Sonny Bill, come on, man. Come on. Dude. Wrong guy to be getting those quotes, to maybe making those quotes.
Pot kettle, John. Pot kettle.
Oh, my God.
If ever you've seen it.
Oh, my God. You're a black kettle. What the hell? And then, Oscar Pistorius is...
Yeah,
what was he? He killed Reba McLean.
Reva Steenkamp.
Reba McLean. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, apparently Johnny's going to be given an opportunity to win parole after that was 10 years ago now. So there you go, John. I always sort of doubted that he was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 13 years and 5 months behind bars in 2017. I always doubted his story on that one, John. He said he thought she was an intruder, and then just fired fired a bunch of gunshots through a door. You think you'd fire one shot and then the person screams out maybe rather than firing 5. I always thought that was an unlikely story, John. But
it was such a long time ago. The main thing about that guy is like he was the first time that I ever saw technology improve a human being. You know, with the blades. and he kind of created a mockery of the sprinting in the I don't know what it's called, what's the games called?
Is it the Paralympics?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Paralympics. Trying to remember. God, is it of the sprinting in that, because he got taller. You know, he actually physically got taller, a good 10 centimeters or something, because he improved his body through technology by realizing if he put taller blades on, he had a longer stride. So he kind of changed the game by turning people into actual cyborgs, and then he shot his wife. That's
his girlfriend.
Anyway, that's a bit weird that he's back in this.
He was initially sentenced to 6 years in jail, but the term was doubled after the state appealed. It was too lenient, John. So, I mean, John, I don't think that's long enough for murder. Seriously, for him to be eligible for parole now, seriously.
I don't know what prison's like, so I don't really know how long a good prison sentence is, but murder is a pretty hard.
It was always an unlikely story, John, wasn't it? I thought she was an intruder. No, sorry, mate, that doesn't stack up.
It was a bit weird. Yeah. So before we knock off for the weekend and tomorrow get to watch that T20 thing.
I think it's, again, recording Thursday. Oh, actually, we don't even need to say that, John. No one cares enough about that game.
So Subversion don't forget the Subversion competition. SmartB is a proud sponsor of Subversion Ascension on December the 2nd at the Roundhouse. Head to Mosh Ticks and search for Subversion Ascension to purchase tickets. It'll be the heavyweight belt between Josh Saunders and Bob Frias. Now, the ADCC Trials, Southern Hemisphere, whatever it is, Asia Pacific Trials is on Sunday. In which a lot of the guys who are in Subversion will be competing to qualify for ADCC, which is the pinnacle of submission grappling. Ex-UFC fighters or current UFC fighters are ex-ADCC champions and stuff like that. So unfortunately, it's on the Flow Grappling network, which is super expensive. If you want to watch Flow Grappling, you have to pay for the whole year. But if you use Flow Hoops or Flow Rodeo, you can pay monthly and just watch the ADCC trials. I do watch a lot of Flow Rodeo. We've got a new competition. Our Rugby League one still isn't up because it was depending on last night and what Nikita Tszyu is doing next. But we do have you and up to 17 mates can pick a fixture in the NRL at Allianz or Accor, BBL at the SCG, or NBL at Kudos Bank Arena. So Rugby League.
It's a great day out at the NBL, John.
And basketball. You and up to 17 mates can go and experience a corporate box. It is an uncatered corporate box, but you can organise your own catering. All you have to do is sign up for SmartB and pick either rugby league, cricket, basketball, or all three as one of your favourite sports. Every selection is a different entry, and get you and 17 mates to sign up. If you are already a member, just log in, edit your profile, and pick your sports. Once it's drawn on the 25th of January, I believe, you'll be notified and you can pick your fixture. Fixtures are subject to availability, of course. Club Prairie Fire is they did their World Cup review and they're about to kick off their next season, which will be BBL based. Michael Vaughan is actually coming to Australia.
Awesome. Be good. I hope he'll be commentating as well, John. I love hearing his commentary.
Be awesome. So they'll be doing a BBL breakdown every week, and hopefully we continue our partnership with them. Don't forget to follow SmartB app on all social media. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Like us on Rumble if you want, if you love right-wing nut jobbery. Uncensored YouTube. And we'll see you all on Monday. Yes, Monday. Have a good weekend, Dan.
Thanks, John. You too, mate. See ya.
Bye, producer John.
Bye.
Bye.